Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Doesn't matter how many years you've been growing, a snippet of information can still pop up that you didn't know. And I've just had one of those magic little moments. Just been watching Rick's video. That the channel is Rick space capital L, easy to find. Doing some good stuff about feeding your orchids and stuff like that, and backed up with years worth of hydroponics type growing, which is effectively growing in an inert media of some sort, be it river rocks, lava rocks, whatever, but not organic media like what I use. So different principles altogether. Nonetheless, some principles stand reasonably fast. A little revelation. And it's to do with something that I've had a niggling problem with. See if I can find an example of the niggling problem. It's not the best of examples, but that leaf is not a uniform colour. Yeah? Must have a better example somewhere. Oh, come on, you never find stuff when you want it, can you? Here. This cane was doing well, possibly going to bloom, but now it isn't. That's what I'm after, showing you, is pale patches on leaves. Now there can be many reasons. Oh, there's a good one up there, you can see through it. Mind you, that is quite an old leaf. That could be starting to go over and becoming yellow and dying off. But nonetheless, that's the sort of thing I'm on about. It's not on all my plants, it's on a few. But it's enough to make me a little concerned. And I always assumed I had either a magnesium deficiency or a calcium deficiency, or possibly both. But given that I use the MSU fertilizer specifically designed for, RO water, rainwater, but RO water in my case, which is what I use, it's a well-balanced fertilizer, and it's got added magnesium and calcium to make up for the fact that it's not using other types of water, like tap water, which would have some in. But for me, it took the guesswork out. My RO unit produces water with a TDS value of 9 or 10, that's virtually pure, and a pH of 7. That's how it comes out of the unit. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that as a nice start point. So what have I changed this year? What I've changed is much lower levels of feed. More frequently, but at lower levels. Now there's a consequence, and I've only just got it. Excuse me, that cold still won't go away. Right, and what it is that the pH value of the water affects how the plant can take up its nutrients. And it's got a quite dramatic thing with the calcium and the magnesium. So I'm starting at 7. By adding some of my fertilizer, I automatically lower the pH. The stronger the feed, the lower the pH. Yeah, that's just how it works, and it's been fine until these thoughts came along. Now Rick in his video has got a chart. And for hydroponic purposes, get away from ideas of soil and all that crap. Get that right out of the way. We're talking hydroponics here. So we're talking growing in an inert media. The only thing the plant's going to get is what you give it. Yeah, that's all it's got to work with. So there's a magic point, which is the pH value of 5.8. And why is that a magic point? Because at that point, at that pH level, the plant's ability to take in calcium and magnesium crosses over. And it's a very, very narrow window. Very narrow. It's quite precise. But that's the only point, really, where both of those elements of your fertilizer are readily available in a form the plant can use. So I've been using low levels of feed. So my pH has probably not been dropping down to that magic 5.8. It's probably been staying around the 6.2, 6.3 mark because of the low levels of feed. So what's happening then? From the 5.8 upwards, higher values, Magnesium is readily available. From 5.8 downwards, heading more acidic, calcium is readily available. So if I've been giving my plants feed with a pH of around 6.1, 6.2-ish, I've been excluding the plant's ability to take on board the calcium I've been giving it. So yes, it's been getting magnesium. Now what would have happened last year? Last year I was using higher feed levels. Mind you, I wasn't using this feed, but nonetheless, principle still stands. So my pH would have dropped down quite a bit lower. So last year I was probably excluding magnesium, but the calcium would have been okay. So now I've got choices. That little bit of information, that magic point at which both are available, which is very precise and quite honestly would be too much faff to try and control. And then I add in the other element that is not hydroponics. I grow in organic media. And after a relatively short while, things start to happen in the pot. Media starts to break down. And as it does so, it adds acidity into the pot. So in theory, which plants are going to be worst affected? Think about it. Low level feed, pH that's too high for calcium to be absorbed properly, but magnesium will be okay. Yeah? So which are the plants that are going to get some calcium? Easy answer. The plants that stay wet longer. Because the media in the pot would carry on working with the moisture left over that the plant didn't gobble up in its first gulp of watering, would work on it and lower the pH. So if you take a plant, say, that was dry, yeah, and it's got a pot full of roots, what's going to happen when I water it with my low level feed? It's going to suck in that water like a sponge. There it is. But is it going to use every bit of that water? No. But at that initial point, it's taken in its magnesium because the pH is higher. Yeah? But then the moisture that it hasn't used that's still in the pot would be affected by the organic media to one degree or another. Now obviously the older the media, the faster that process. But in new media, with a pot full of roots, that plant's going to dry out before that pH lowers to any great extent, which means I've excluded calcium. Because the pot will be dry before I had a chance to, affect the pH enough to make that readily available. So I've got a bit of work to do. Yeah, pots that stay wet longer have probably got less of a problem. Things like my Paphiopedilums, Masdevallias, Restrepias, I'm not supposed to let them get dry. But the age of the media would have an effect, size of the pot, amount of roots in the pot, all that will have an effect. But where I've got fast wet-dry cycles, like in my holy clay pots, the plants are allowed to dry. And then they get absolutely soaked. And at that point, the roots are just going to suck in what I've given them fast. But then the pot's going to dry out fast. It's not going to hang around that moisture. So they've had a nice dose of magnesium and probably didn't get much calcium, if any. And calcium is important. It's what gives your plant its strength and its structure. It helps build strong cells. It's one of the elements that works hard to make your plant strong and healthy. Nitrogen is great for growth, but you can get what I call wishy-washy growth, long spindly bits or pale green bits that are floppy. Yeah? Well, that's nitrogen without its backup. One of the backups it needs is the calcium. It's a very complex formula, what's going on in your plant. I'm not going there. But at the end of the day, I'm fully aware that the plants need magnesium and calcium. It's got to be there. You exclude it, your plant's going to suffer. And I think I may have been excluding the calcium by feeding at much lower levels. So I've got two choices. well, several choices. There's always more than two. I used to be called third option Frampton when I worked in computing, because when it was a black and white, you know, it's either this or that, I'd always come up with a third option. But anyway, options. I could, let's say, start on day one. Pot's dry. I could feed with quite a reasonable level of feed, sort of levels I was using last year. And at that point, the plant would take in what I've just given it fast. And because the feed was stronger, the pH would be low enough that the calcium would be readily available and absorbed. Yeah? Pot starts to dry out. So what's the next feed it needs to get? The next feed it needs to get is a low level feed. At that pH, the magnesium's readily available. Yeah? What would be the next watering, do you think? Yeah, it's called a flush. Just in case any of the two aforementioned, especially the higher level feed, is remaining in the pot unused. Because that, you know, the unused feed in your pots is not doing anything any good at all, really. You know, that salt build up, as it's generally known, doesn't do your plants any good. And it will speed up breaking down your media if you grow with organic media like I do. You know, it'll speed up that process no end. So I think I'm just going to change my watering program a bit. I don't think I need to mess about any more than that. The other choice I've got is to carry on feeding at low levels, and one feed would be exactly as I've been doing, a low level feed, pH at a level that the magnesium can get in, and then the next feed that I give it, I still stick with the low level feed for all the elements, but I use a pH down buffer to actually lower the pH and make the calcium available. Yeah, so I could alternate with those two types of waterings, and there's going to be a flush in there, you know, in the not too distant future. So thanks, Rick, for that little snippet of information. It's the one bit I didn't have. It's the fact that it's very difficult to make calcium and magnesium readily available to your plant at the same time, because the pH needs to be different for both of them to be taken on board. So yeah, learn something every day, as they say. See you again. Thanks for visiting my channel. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, there are some others you could watch below. You can just click on the thumbnails. If you'd like to see more of my videos, please subscribe to my channel. You can use the link below. I post on most days, so hope to see you again soon. Thanks for stopping by.